Coming up on Talking Points, the House Oversight Committee releases emails from convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, what they contained and who they were to.
Plus, the government is finally open, but some healthcare benefits are closing. Here are the details of the compromise.
And Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro gives the green light to President Trump for continued drug boat strikes. All that and more when Talking Points starts right now. Good evening and welcome into Talking Points. I'm Ben Bascuk.
And I'm Alex Burstein. In a turn of events, President Donald Trump is calling on House Republicans to support the release of files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Just last week, Trump called the efforts to release the files a hoax, saying Democrats were bringing them up to, quote, deflect how badly they've done on the shutdown.
In the Post, Trump says the Justice Department already released, quote, tens of thousands of pages and directed the DOJ to investigate Epstein's relationship with prominent Democrats, including former President Bill Clinton. Speaker Mike Johnson says he will bring the measure to the floor this week. To become law, the bill will need to pass the Senate and get Trump's signature.
Well, one notable Republican calling for the release of the Epstein files is Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. President Trump withdrew his endorsement of Greene, marking a dramatic split between longtime allies. Recently, Greene has criticized Trump on a number of issues. She called Trump's foreign policies, quote, not America first positions, and in an interview on CNN yesterday, Greene said that she worries Trump's rhetoric towards her could lead to violence.
The most hurtful thing he said, which is absolutely untrue, is he called me a traitor, and that is so extremely wrong. And those are the types of words used that can radicalize people against me and put my life in danger.
Greene added that she is done participating in toxic politics and that people need to, quote, come together to end all the toxic, dangerous rhetoric and divide.
Attention later turned away from Capitol Hill and toward shakeups at the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Acting FEMA Administrator David Richardson resigned today after roughly 6 months leading the agency. This comes as the president proposes major cuts to its budget and calls for its elimination at the end of the month. During his time as FEMA chief, Richardson oversaw the response to the July floods that killed over 130 people in Texas's Hill Country. Richardson was on vacation with his 2 sons over the holiday weekend, but testifies he immediately coordinated a response with Texas officials, the White House, and others from his truck. Moving to central New York, after Democrats in Onondaga County flipped the legislature for the first time in 50 years, their caucus is nominating an all-female leadership team. Nicole Watts, one of the newly elected Democrats, will serve as the first female chair if chosen.
Her majority leader nominee, Nodija Hernandez, will be the first female leader of color. The pair will mark the first time Democrats lead the legislature since the 1970s. The two say they intend to lead the Democrats to vote as one bloc, but will leave room for bipartisan work as well.
And after 43 days, the longest government shutdown in history came to an end with Democrats and Republicans agreeing on a spending bill. But the fate of the Affordable Care Act and ACA subsidies remains unclear.
Talking Points analyst Danielle Blinn has more on what might change if a deal isn't reached. Danielle?
Hey, Ben and Alex. Even though the government shutdown is over, the fight that started it in the first place is far from finished. The longest shutdown in U.S. history ended last week after 8 Democrats and independent senators joined Republicans to push a vote forward on the continuing resolution. What the new shutdown didn't do was extend the Obama-era healthcare subsidies that so many Democrats were fighting over. Now, Americans will face the consequences of those Affordable Care Act subsidies running out in less than 2 months. Republicans are rushing to put a plan together before the subsidies run out. If they don't, Americans are facing insurance premiums that would be more than double their current amount. People who can't afford these new premiums may have to unenroll from the ACA and find alternative health insurance. Many Republicans are publicly refusing to consider extending Obamacare, but a White House official recently told NBC News that President Donald Trump hasn't fully rejected the idea. In terms of next steps, Democrats were promised a House vote on an Affordable Care Act bill of their choice. If that doesn't work, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has started a discharge petition that would give a 3-year extension to ACA tax credits. House Democrats announced this new extension yesterday, which would require 4 Republicans to sign the petition, along with all House Democrats. Jeffries says it is up to Republicans to pass these credits and says Democrats won't give up trying.
Republicans have created a health care crisis all across America. Largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers closing all throughout the country because of what Republicans did in their one big ugly bill.
Well, Danielle, thanks for joining us here at the desk. You hear Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats there, but the Republicans are kind of trying to go around this and put some other ideas forth about what health care could look like. So what are they saying it could look like?
Yeah, so there's 4 different plans that are kind of reaching the forefront here. One of them is Senator Rick Scott's new plan that would put federal money in a health savings style account for individuals. Another is Senator Bill Cassidy's plan that would include flexible spending accounts. Both of these are going to help enrollees enroll directly into the Affordable Care Act plans instead of going through the insurance. That's a major difference we're going to see here. Senator Lindsey Graham also has a plan that would use a not very often used tool, the budget reconciliation tool, to pass legislation with just a simple majority rather than what they would typically need, which is that 2/3 vote in the Senate. And kind of alternatively, Representative Jeff Van Drew has said that he would rather extend subsidies for another year until an alternative solution is found. And if not, he is willing to sign that discharge position that Hakeem Jeffries has put forward in terms of making sure that those don't run out. He says he would rather see a Democrat forward thing move forward rather than have these healthcare subsidies run out for people on the Affordable Care Act right now.
Yeah, lots of proposals, lots of discussions, but we're kind of in this realm. The government shutdown's over. There's this handshake agreement with the Republicans to bring a vote on this in mid-December. What are some of those other impacts that are still lingering of this government shutdown, whether it's ACA subsidies or other things?
Yeah, I think in terms of the ACA, the big thing a lot of people are worried about is that if they don't get any of these 4 or more new deals put through, that if these acts do run out, like I mentioned, they're going to double these premiums. And if people don't get onto these premiums and they're not able to stay on the Affordable Care Act and on Obamacare that they're currently on, they're going to probably have to get off insurance. A lot of them aren't going to be able to find an alternative solution that is cheap enough for what they can afford. And we were talking about this earlier, but it affects hospitals if people aren't on insurance. What happens there? Also, in terms of other kind of pushbacks, I know we're seeing SNAP benefits slowly come back, but it is a slow-moving process. A lot of things are very slow-moving if the rest of this kind of return from the shutdown doesn't move forward quickly, and that's what we're seeing here with the ACA.
It's a big butterfly effect where one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden a lot of economic issues could come from this. And I think a big thing with why this shutdown went on was because the Democrats were saying we need this to get extended and we need the Affordable Care Act to keep on going. And now it's kind of at a position where it seems more likely than not it will not be continuing past the end of the year. So did the Democrats really get anything out of this shutdown?
It doesn't seem like it to me. It seems like a lot of what they were doing is they were saying we're not going to push back or we're not going to step down. We're going to push back until we get this through. And then we saw these 8 independent and Democratic senators say, actually, we're going to kind of help the Republicans on this because we care more about other things than these healthcare subsidies is kind of what they said. A lot of them talked about SNAP benefits and said we really care more about SNAP benefits. A lot of these people also we were talking about aren't up for re-election, except for I think John Ossoff is kind of the outlier there. So they're putting forward people that are less vulnerable to do a lot of these things, but it seems like they genuinely got nothing out of this longest shutdown ever and all of the consequences that came from it, from not paying federal employees and SNAP benefits and now ACA running out, and just for nothing to happen after we saw this blue wave like nationwide and local races and federal races, all of this happening. And we saw, I think if Democrats had kind of continued to hold out, I think we could have seen some change there, but they sort of gave up towards the end, and I just don't think they're going to get anything out of this.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much for joining us at the desk. Definitely a lot to look forward to in the coming weeks. Well, still ahead, immigration agents target Charlotte, North Carolina in a series of raids on homes and businesses. Stay with us.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Women are bad with money.
That's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now,
we've got something to say. Save it. Save the old-fashioned advice, the empty excuses.
It's all worthless, unlike us.
To our fellow females, it is time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Contributing to our futures, investing in our independence.
Until we're no longer
80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
So again, we say to that, save it.
The falsehoods, the feelings of fault, then the funds.
Learn how to save for your retirement at wesaysaveit.org.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Dozens are under arrest in North Carolina's largest city during the Department of Homeland Security's latest targeted immigration blitz. Our Boone Gross joins us to break down the ICE operation in Charlotte. Boone, what do you got for us?
Thanks, Ben. As of this moment, federal agents have made over 130 arrests in the latest crackdown on illegal immigration. Operation Charlotte's Web, as the initiative is being called, has residents and lawmakers deeply divided. Masked agents have been spotted driving unmarked vehicles and waiting outside of churches, apartment complexes, and in parking lots. The crackdown has already seen harsh criticism and protests throughout the city for allegedly aggressive tactics and numerous reports of racial profiling. The operation in the city of just under 1 million is led by Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino, who also directed operations in Chicago and LA earlier this year. Bovino has been active on social media, posting pictures of detainees and giving frequent updates on the operation. Videos have emerged over the weekend of encounters with Border Patrol agents. Honduran-born U.S. citizen Willie Acetuno filmed this video of masked Border Patrol agents breaking his truck window as he attempted to show documentation. And then, of course, Charlotte resident Reba Hamilton filmed this video of masked agents driving an unmarked minivan, talking to her landscapers who are hanging Christmas lights on her property. Bovino has stated that the initiative is meant to get criminal illegal aliens off the streets, though it's unknown how many of those arrested actually had violent criminal records. In a video to his constituents, Democratic Governor of North Carolina Josh Stein had this to say on the situation on the ground.
We've seen heavily armed agents in paramilitary garb driving unmarked cars, targeting American citizens based on their skin color, racially profiling and picking up random people in parking lots and off of our sidewalks.
Now, despite officials claiming the operation is meant to keep the public safe and curb violent crime, Charlotte police report crime in the city is down 20%. And it is unknown how long agents are planning to stay in the city. Ben?
Yeah, Boone, so why was Charlotte chosen for this operation specifically?
Well, yeah, Ben, the Trump administration cited specifically the murder of 23-year-old Irina Zarutska, who was a Ukrainian refugee. Back in August, she was stabbed on a light rail train. The thing of it is, though, is that she was an immigrant and she was stabbed by someone who had a long history of mental health issues, which has been cited by the current mayor of Charlotte, saying that they need more resources to combat mental health and policing in the city. But that was a real big sticking point for the administration. And they've sent in these masked agents, and so far, most of the people they've taken off the streets, it's unknown if they actually do have a criminal record, or a violent criminal record, that is to say.
Boone, we hear Charlotte leaders and North Carolina Democrat leaders really against these operations, but have the local police been cooperating with ICE or these Border Patrol agents?
Well, Alex, actually at this point, a big thing that local officials have been telling people is that it is safe to call 911. A lot of Hispanic and Latino people have been afraid to call 911 or call the police because they think that they might be harassed by ICE. So as of this moment, the police in Charlotte have not been cooperating directly with Border Patrol or ICE.
Thanks so much, Boone. Definitely keeping an eye on the situation in Charlotte. Well, President Trump is vowing to remove 100 illegal immigrants a year. That's 100 million. But America's Roman Catholic bishops are condemning the administration's deportation campaign. At the Bishop's annual conference in Baltimore, they released a near unanimous statement opposing, quote, the indiscriminate mass deportation of people and pray for an end to the dehumanizing rhetoric and violence. They added that Catholic teaching exhorts nations to recognize the fundamental dignity of all persons, including immigrants, end quote.
The statement, called a special message, is a very rare note that bishops can only issue at their annual meeting. The last time they issued one was all the way back in 2013 in opposition to the contraceptive coverage mandate of the Affordable Care Act. This new statement overwhelmingly passed with 216 votes in favor and only 5 opposed. Trump won the Catholic vote in the 2024 election with 55% of Catholics voting for him.
Just ahead, the U.S.'s decision to fortify Venezuelan waters as strikes on drug boats continue. That and more after the break.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Welcome to my house. Lately, not my happy place. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The parents were not themselves. My little brothers were morphing into small creatures. The walls were closing in. Clearly a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. And there's a lot of that going around right now. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It might not get you out of the house, but it could help you find a little more breathing room.
Welcome back into Talking Points. As we came on the air tonight, the UN Security Council has just passed a U.S. drafted resolution that moves beyond the current truce in Gaza to a more sustainable plan. The 15-person member council voted 13-0 in favor, with Russia and China abstaining.
Included in the plan is the establishment of an international stabilization force. It also requires Hamas to hand over its weapons and calls for the creation of a newly trained Palestinian police in Gaza. The draft also raises the possibility of a Palestinian state, something Israel strongly opposes.
As the New START nuclear weapons deal comes to a close in February, President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are at odds once again. The deal, which was extended by Biden in 2020, puts a cap of just over 1,500 long-range nuclear weapons per country. If the deal expires next year, it will be the first time since 1991 the U.S. will have no weapons agreement with Russia. The two leaders have met about missiles this year, but there have been no known progress on a new contract. Despite Trump and Putin both saying they would adhere to a new deal, this comes as Trump says he will restart U.S. nuclear weapons testing for the first time since the 1990s, and Russia has indicated it may do just the same.
Speaking of fortifying arms, we've been following the advancing conflict in the Pacific Ocean over the past couple of months when it comes to the U.S. and Venezuela's relationship, with the toll reaching 21 boats struck down in international waters. The Trump administration has not produced any evidence supporting allegations against the vessels or the people on board. Our analyst Emma Popper joins us with how the decision could shape U.S. policy in the region. Emma?
Thanks, Ben. Over the course of the last 2 months, the U.S. and Venezuela are reaching a boiling point. CNN reported today that President Trump has made up his mind on a course of action in Venezuela. Sources have told CNN that the president is weighing his options for a military escalation in the area. His options include a scaled-up military campaign to potentially oust current Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Meanwhile, the U.S. military has amassed more than a dozen warships and 15,000 troops in the region as part of an operation that the Pentagon has named Operation Southern Spear. Here's what President Trump said 2 weeks ago in his interview with 60 Minutes about the escalating conflict.
Are Maduro's days as president numbered?
I would say, yeah. I think so, yeah.
And this issue of potential land strikes in Venezuela, is that true?
I don't tell you that. I mean, I'm not saying it's true or untrue, but I wouldn't.
Why would we
I wouldn't
do
be
it?
inclined to say that I would do that, but because I don't talk to a reporter about whether or not I'm going to strike.
Between yesterday and September 2nd, U.S. forces have hit at least 22 vessels in 21 separate strikes in international waters. Collectively, at least 83 people have been killed in the strikes, and while the U.S. have not publicly identified the people, they are alleged to be narco-terrorists.
Because it's all about drugs. Well, in Venezuela's case, it's about drugs, and it's also about thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that they've released into our country. And some are gang members from Tren de Aragua, some are many are drug dealers, some are murderers. So in the case
Emma, welcome to the desk. He talks about kind of this classification as a foreign terrorist organization, as narco-terrorists, but at the same time, we see them not saying this is an act of war because the drugs are indirectly harming the American people, kind of playing both sides there from the executive office. Tell me a little bit about those classifications. What does it mean to say that these drug boats and Venezuelan Tren de Aragua cartel members are foreign terrorists?
I think this is interesting. We're seeing this distinguish men of like the Cartel de Sun, the Solis, as well as Tren de Araguas. And President Trump is saying that these are headed by the president of Venezuela. So indirectly calling the president of Venezuela a terrorist as well. These distinguishments don't, it's seen as a justification. It's not seen as kind of a classification as, it's just a justification of why he's doing this, I would say.
Are these classifications aimed at making it seem more legal what the U.S. is doing, or what's kind of the international policy that the U.S. is trying to adhere by here?
The international policy with strikes in international waters. International waters are supposed to be peaceful. That is what the international law says. President Trump and the U.S. are justifying these strikes because they're saying that they hurt American people, and that's the justification behind these. They're saying if you attack us, we're going to attack you. And in these peaceful places, that is that justification.
You talk about those strikes in international waters, but we have this Operation Southern Spear proposed by Secretary of Defense or War, Pete Hegseth, which would further these to Tomahawk missile strikes on land. That was proposed to the president this week. If that were to happen, if there is this military defensive force and let's say an ousting of Maduro, what is the situation in Venezuela going to look like?
I think there's not going to be a ton of change. We're seeing if a power vacuum is created here, we have had a dictatorship and authoritarian government in Venezuela since the 1990s. We're not going to see a huge change, but President Trump does not like Maduro in the slightest. So we see that as a possible route to oust him is these land strikes.
Is there really a chance that there's on-land strikes? What would that look like in another nation that is on land?
I can't tell you honestly. It's something that we haven't seen, this kind of upping of our defense force and military since the Cold War in these kind of international waters. So a lot of this stuff is kind of unprecedented in the modern age. So we're going to see a lot of developments here in the coming weeks, and I anticipate that we're going to see maybe land strikes. I don't know if that's going to be possible right now, and definitely not Venezuela attacking back.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of this fortification, 15,000 U.S. troops, the largest buildup since the Cold War, like you said, kind of in that Indo-Pacific region. But it speaks to this broader trend of the U.S. fortifying kind of nations abroad with that $330 million arms deal to Taiwan, which was decried by Beijing as kind of this enforcement against Chinese sovereignty. So the U.S. kind of building up these forces, an increasing escalation, a doubling bounty on Maduro in that Indo-Pacific Asian region. We're going to have to keep a close eye on how that pans out over the next couple weeks if there truly is a military defensive push into Venezuela and possibly eventually an ousting of Nicolas Maduro. But thank you so much for joining us at the desk. Like we said, we'll be following that situation very closely. But when we come back, the Trump administration says they're taking off some tariffs to make that grocery bill a little easier. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation letter.
You're resigning.
Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you get stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
I forgot. I'll do better.
Please, don't quit on me. Okay, but remember, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
Welcome back to Talking Points. President Trump is on a quest to make America affordable again as voters express concerns on the economy. Late last week, he announced he'd be scrapping U.S. tariffs on beef, coffee, and tropical fruits. In addition to his pullback on tariffs, Trump says his administration will issue $2,000 checks for many Americans using revenue collected from import levies.
The White House is also considering a 50-year mortgage to help alleviate the affordable home crisis, but the announcement drew immediate criticism from policymakers and economists. They say a 50-year mortgage will do little to resolve problems in the housing market, such as lack of supply and high interest rates. And Ben, it's really interesting to see kind of a switch up from Trump on this. A couple weeks ago, you would ask him what's happening with the economy. He'd say it's going great compared to a year ago. And now he's kind of realizing after these elections where things did not go great for the Republicans, maybe the economy not as in good of a shape as they thought.
Right. This whole campaign promise was we're going to make America affordable again. Americans saw him as a businessman. They thought that was going to happen. We even see people like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, hey, I went to the grocery store. It's a lot more expensive than it was just a couple years ago. But I guess the real question is with this mortgage situation is it really going to alleviate the financial pressure of Americans? And I guess the answer is it might in the short run, right? We'd have to look at kind of the long run. There's lots of possibilities, whether it's how much your home costs, what the down payment looks like, that go into this decision. It's stretching that home payment over a longer amount of time, so in this case 50 years rather than 30 years. But that means that you're paying more after the fact. So you might be paying less annually, you're paying more in the long run.
It's also just not only home mortgages, and it's not only bananas and ground beef from the store. There's a lot of different factors. The Century Foundation, a think tank, did a recent study on this about utility bills, and the amount of past due utility bills has gone up 10% in the last calendar year. So while there's these tariffs affecting some things and you're trying to affect mortgages, it's a whole picture issue, and I'm not sure every single strand of that's being addressed here.
Right, and like you said earlier and just now, it's an affordability problem, but it's also a supply problem when it comes to the housing market, right? Let's take, for example, we'll do a little math here on the show, 6.3% on a $410,000 home. You're saving about $259 a month, but if we extend that mortgage over 50 years, it's an increase of almost $400,000. So is it really more affordable for Americans in the long run? I'm not so sure, maybe for some. But in the short run, it's delivering that economic quick relief that the president wants to deliver on that campaign promise to make America affordable again.
That's been good broadcaster math right
there.
You
like that?
I do think it's interesting the strategy Trump's going to try to improve his stance on this. Right now, he's speaking at the McDonald's Summit, which is celebrating 70 years of McDonald's, and his speech is talking about affordability, but going the fast food route, it's an interesting standpoint from a PR perspective.
Right. Make America healthy again. We'll have to see what RFK has to say about that one. It is interesting, though, because now he's even promising to possibly deliver checks into the accounts of some Americans that they can use and choose to spend on medical bills and healthcare if they want, kind of privatizing that system with the expiration of these ACA subsidies. It's something we're going to keep a close look at, especially in this balance to make America affordable and make America healthy. But that's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News and like us on Facebook. I'm Ben Bascuk.
And I'm Alex Burstein. Have a great night, Syracuse.